Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well and ready to start your learning this morning in our reading comprehension lesson. The ally today is to use words to develop images. Now, we have talked a lot about developing pictures in your mind as you read. So words, phrases, and sentences hopefully will create pictures in your mind as you read, and that will help you to understand the text that you are reading. Now, before we do that, I'm going to first of all read out some poems that people have emailed. Now, this poem is Maya's. I'm going to read it. She's done a wonderful job of presenting it. Wonderful colours, beautiful setting out, really good illustrations to go with the poem. So those images help us to understand my invisible cat. I have an invisible cat. She's such a remarkable climber. She climbs on trees on invisible paws, making an inaudible meow. My cat is absolutely calm. She slowly walks back home. Why, she could lick you right now, and you would never know she was there. Did I mention only I can see, hear, and feed her? I like that. I like that way she finished it off. So that goes with the idea of invisible. Does that cat really exist? And here's a poem by Fiona. Please, Mrs. Butler. Please, Mrs. Butler. This boy, Derek Drew, keeps on taking my pencil, miss. What shall I do? Go and sit on the ceiling, dear. Go and sit in the playground. Hide your pencil in your hair, my lamb. Just don't make a sound. Please, Mrs. Butler. The boy, Derek Drew, keeps kicking my chair, miss. What shall I do? And that's a lovely version of the original poem. And this one is from Hussein. I have a friendly cheetah. I'm going to change some words if it doesn't quite make sense. Got a wonderful picture, wonderful layout. Looks brilliant when it's done on the computer. I have a friendly cheetah. He is such a remarkable sprinter. He sprints as fast in such a fast speed across the deserts, you would think he is invisible. My cheetah is extremely fast moving. He hides, hoping to catch a meal sometimes. He could be searching for a meal around your house, and you would not even notice him from his fast speed. So very well done, Hussein. And here we have, I think this, yes, it's from Dima. It's about her invisible parrot. My invisible parrot. I have an invisible parrot. He's such a remarkable speaker. He flies through the sky being very cheeky. My parrot is a sleepyhead. He sometimes takes over speech. Why, he could be interrupting you right now, and you would not even hear. So there you go. Now, Dima also did a second poem, Forget the Sounds. Forget the ring of the phone, forget the ting of the pans. All the sound is gone now. Bing, bang, splish, splash, crunch, munch, pow. Everything is silent. Nothing is really vibrant. Forget the ding-dong of the bell. Forget the tick-tock of the clock. Very well done to Dima. So we're going to now start the... Oh, sorry, there's one more to go, and this is Sophie's. I'm going to expand this one a bit because I have trouble reading them. It's called The Forest. Hoot, swoosh, crackle. The sun rises higher and higher like a baking muffin as a bunny hopped away. Woods, woods, woods. The wind is moving the leaves like a sweeping brush. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hooting owls are as loud as a trombone. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Branches crackle like a wafer. Crackle, crackle, crackle. I can't read that word. Oh, sorry. The sun rises higher and higher like a baking muffin as a bunny hopped away. Woods, woods, woods. Well, that's a wonderful version of the original poem that we we studied. Well done, everyone. There'll be another group of people who I'll select to so that I can read their poems to the rest of the group. So before we start our session, make sure you have a pencil or a pen and a paper or a book, and you're in control of the pause button. So let's start the lesson. We always have our quiz. So the quiz is, what is it called when a writer uses figurative or descriptive language to appeal to the reader's senses? Is it imagery, imagination, metaphor, or personification? Now you can write 1, 2, 3, or 4. So is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Now here you have to think of the sense that you would be using to understand the sentence. As he looks, he sees a strange expression come over the face of the hostess. She is staring straight ahead, her muscles contracting slightly. That means the muscles in her face getting tighter. Would you be using your sight, smell, taste, or touch to imagine that? Remember to drink sparingly. Water supply is limited, Brock nodded. He tried to lick his parched lips, but his whole mouth felt dry. Parched means dry. So, which sense would you be using to imagine this? Sight, smell, hearing, or touch? And last of all, shout Yahoo! Hurrah, hooray! Turn up the music all the way. Try and bounce your bowling ball. Ride a skateboard up the wall. Chomp your food with a smack and a slurp. Chew, chop, hiccup, burp. Which sense does that appeal to? Sight, sound, taste, or touch? Okay, shall we mark that? So let's mark the first one. So what is it called when a writer uses figurative or descriptive language? It's called imagery. So that's number 1. Number 2, she is staring straight ahead, her muscles contracting slightly. That is sight. You'd be looking at that person, so you're using your eyes, which goes with sight. He tried to lick his parched lips, but his whole mouth felt dry. That is to do with touch. Now you can feel that. You could feel that your lips are dry and your mouth feels dry. And the last one, there's a lot of noise going on there. Chew, chomp, hiccup, burp. That goes with sound. That's your sense of hearing. Let's move on. How did you do? Did you get 4 out of 4? Let's move to the next part of the quiz. Okay, how does imagery help us understand the story? You could put it doesn't. By expressing how the author is feeling, imagery helps us to see, touch, taste, smell, and feel what the characters feel and see. And the last one, by telling the mood. What I'm going to say it doesn't is 1. By expressing how the author's feeling is 2. Imagery is 3. And telling the mood is 4. Make your selection. How does imagery help us understand the story? 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the same process here, much more straightforward. Is this imagery? The wind blew silently. Can you imagine that in your head? Is that a yes or no? When you read that, can you imagine an image of the wind blowing silently? The next one, what type of imagery is this? The thunder clapped loudly, shaking the house. Is that number 1, sight, number 2, sound, number 3, touch, and number 4, taste? Sound would go with hearing, of course. Number 4, which one of the 5 senses is used in this sentence? The wolf howled painfully over the loss of his mate. Is that number 1, sight, number 2, sound, number 3, touch, or number 4, taste? And the next one, which of the 5 senses is used in this sentence? The warm, juicy burger felt like heaven on my tongue. Is that number 1, taste, number 2, touch, number 3, sight, or number 4, sound? Right, we've come to the end of the quiz for this slide, so let's mark and find out how you did. So number 1, you should have chosen number 3. Imagery helps us to see, touch, taste, smell, and feel what the characters feel and see. That's what imagery is. Number 2, the wind blew silently. Is this imagery? Yes, it is, because we can work out that the wind is very, very quiet. So you'd have to close your mind and think about the wind outside. Even though we can't see it, we can actually see the movement of trees, etc. outside. You could also, if you're standing outside, you can feel the wind. So yes, it is imagery. We could hear it and we could feel it. Number 3, what type of imagery is this? The thunder clapped loudly. Well, that's definitely sound. Number 4, the wolf howled painfully. That's definitely sound, because when a wolf howls, it's barking very loudly. And number 5, the warm, juicy burger felt like heaven on my tongue. Well, that's an interesting one, because that would definitely to be do with taste, but also not just taste, but also you could feel that. So taste, and I would say touch, could be possible. So number 1 and number 2 would be possible. 1 is okay, or if you put 2 is okay. If you put both, fantastic. Let's move on to the next slide. Right, if we have metaphors, hopefully when you read a metaphor, you will have some kind of picture of your mind of what it looks like. So your friend George is just a big baby. Now, is George really a baby? If George is 10 years old, is he a baby? So if you say someone's a big baby, you're saying that they are older but behaving like someone who is much younger. And you are my guardian angel. A guardian angel looks after people. So it's really saying that you're saying to another person that they're protecting you. Johnny's mouth is one huge metal factory. Well, is Johnny's mouth really a metal factory? Well, what it really means is that Johnny has metal in his mouth, which could be braces, or even in this picture he has braces. So they're comparing Johnny's mouth to a metal factory. So they're comparing two things that are not alike. His students are puppets on a string. Well, students are not really puppets, but it helps us to make that comparison. That puppets can only move if the puppeteer moves the strings. So it's almost saying that students are being controlled like puppets. They might be controlled by someone who's older, someone who is in their class, or it could be a teacher or an adult. And the next one, I wish you weren't always such a chicken. Well, there's our image of the chicken, but what does that really mean? What does it mean when you say that, I wish you weren't always such a chicken? A human being is not a chicken, but in this case it means that the person is saying, I wish you weren't so easily frightened or afraid or even a coward. So hopefully when you read sentences or metaphors, you will be able to create a picture of your mind of what does that really mean. So we're going to move on because there's quite a few there to read, but we've got other things to cover, like the video. Now, hopefully, we'll be able to, oh yes, it's going to work. I'm going to keep going back because this is playing up. So we're going to go to a video now and look at imagery.
Hey, it's Claire, and I'm going to be talking about literary terms within the category of comparison. I'm going to focus on 3 types of comparison: metaphors, similes, and personification. I'm going to start with metaphors. The English word metaphor comes directly from the Latin or Greek word metaphora, which means to transfer. This makes sense because a metaphor is essentially a transfer of one idea or concept onto another. In other words, it is a figure of speech which makes a comparison between 2 things or objects that have some characteristic in common between them. The author claims that one thing actually is something else because of this common characteristic. Many good examples of metaphors can be found in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. During Act 3, Scene 3, Romeo says that heaven is here, where Juliet lives. This is a metaphor because he is saying that heaven actually exists in the place where Juliet lives, also implying that Juliet is actually an angel. Because neither of these claims are true and are only being used to highlight a point about Juliet, the statement is a metaphor. Metaphors can be used for a variety of reasons. Sometimes an idea is too complex to be thoroughly explained without the use of a metaphor. Or, as with Romeo and Juliet, the idea isn't too complex, but describing the concept in basic terms isn't doing the idea justice, such as saying someone's eyes are beautiful versus saying someone's eyes are the stars or the ocean. Another reason to use metaphors is that they allow the reader to be able to relate to the message of the piece more when the author takes the audience into consideration. A third reason to use metaphors is that they can add more interest into a piece of writing and can grab an audience's attention more easily. One last reason is that metaphors are simply nice to read. They can add poetic details to an otherwise dull piece of writing and make a boring article more fun to read. Now we're going to move on to similes. A simile is related to a metaphor. However, with a simile, the author is claiming that something is similar to another thing with the help of words such as like or as. One example of simile can be found in William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. He says that yellow butterflies flickered along the shade like flecks of sun. By describing the butterflies as sunlight, the picture created in the reader's mind is more majestic and beautiful. Another example can be found in J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan when Wendy's mind is being described. He says that her romantic mind was like the tiny boxes, one within the other. This example is interesting because it shows a simile being used to describe something essentially indescribable by giving the reader a completely different picture. The uses of similes are very similar to those of a metaphor. However, a simile is also oftentimes used to add playfulness to a piece, such as in children's books, which is done less often with metaphors. The last literary device is personification. Personification is when an object, idea, or animal is given a human quality. In other words, it is when anything non-human is described in a way that makes it appear human. One example is the poem "The Skies Can't Keep Their Secret" by Emily Dickinson. In the poem, she says, "The skies can't keep their secret, they tell it to the hills just tell the orchards, and they the daffodils." Emily Dickinson often describes things in nature as human beings because it allows her readers to feel more connected to the natural world. There are multiple different reasons to use personification in literature. As with simile and metaphor, personification can be used to add interest or whimsy to a piece, such as saying the flowers were being blown versus the flowers danced in the breeze. Personification is also used in order to convey emotions of things that aren't necessarily capable of emotions. If an author said, "The table sighed under the weight of all the papers," it's as if the table feels stressed or overwhelmed like a human being, which allows people to relate to an animal or object when they normally wouldn't be able to. The last reason to use personification is to add more vivid description. When setting up a scene, an author could simply say it was stormy outside. However, if they say that the rain was pounding on the roof while thunder clapped in the sky, then the reader can get a clearer picture of what is happening. Now I'm going to give you some ways to remember these literary devices. With a metaphor, all you need to remember is the phrase "me too." Because the word metaphor has the letters M-E-T in it, just like the phrase me too, you can remember that when something states what it is, the person being compared would say me too, because the writer is claiming that they actually are that other thing. With a simile, a good way to remember it is to remember that it sounds like the word similar. This helps because the two things you are comparing are like each other, meaning they are similar, but not the same as with metaphor. As for personification, you are making an object or idea like a person, which is in the word personification. In other words, you are personifying it, or giving it a persona, which can help you remember the term. To sum it all up, metaphors, similes, and personification are all methods of describing things in ways they wouldn't normally be described through the use of comparison.
Well, there we go. That's imagery. And we're going to now look at imagery. So to use, the ally is to use words to develop images. The sun greeted me this morning. So your task is you're going to draw an image that goes with that sentence or phrase. So draw an image that goes with number one. The sun greeted me this morning. So when you read, hopefully you'll see a picture in your mind. That's what the author, poet, or writer is trying to do. They're trying to create pictures or paint pictures in your mind. So the sun greeted me this morning. Draw a simple picture for that. Number two, I sat like a statue. You don't have to be a great artist like this. I sat still like a statue. So draw a simple image that goes with that sentence. Number three, the sky was full of dancing stars. Now stars don't really dance, but it gives us an idea of there's plenty of movement in the sky. So that helps create a picture in your mind. Number four, the grapevines wove their delicate fingers together. Now grapevines are not alive, but we're giving them human characteristics. So we're saying that their vines are like the fingers of humans. So can you draw a simple picture for the grapevines? Number five, the sun is being compared to. The sun played hide and seek with the clouds. Now the sun can't really play, and nor can the clouds. But the metaphor helps us to imagine what is happening. So can you draw a picture for the sun played hide and seek with the clouds? So that is definitely personification because the sun does not play. Number six, silently the slow, slimy slug slithered along the ground. Well, that is alliteration. Does that help you imagine what the slug is doing? So can you draw a simple image for number six? Number seven, the burning wood hissed and cackled. Well, those are two onomatopoeic words. Hopefully they'll help you to imagine what the burning wood is like. So can you draw a simple image for number seven? And number eight, the flowers were like dancers swaying in the breeze. So we've got a simile here. Can you draw an image that goes with sentence number eight? Now, of course, you know how this works. If you need to push the pause button, do so. So today it's more about, can you read something and then draw a picture or image to go with it? Because as we read, we should be able to imagine these things in our heads or mind. So let's move to the next slide. If you need to pause the pause button, do so, and then continue when you are ready. So let's have a look at the next page. Think of 4 examples, similes or metaphors. It could also be alliteration, and it could be onomatopoeia. as well? Can you think of 4 examples that you have used in your own poetry and draw images to match them? So for instance, Hussein had the cheetah in his poem. So I've written here, the cheetah was as fast as a car. Now can you imagine seeing an image in your head when you read that? So can you draw a simple image or images to go with that sentence to show that you understand what it means? Maya had her cat poem. So my cat climbs trees like a monkey. Now what does that tell you about the cat? Because it's being compared to the monkey, it's saying it's just like a monkey. We know monkeys are very good at climbing, swinging, jumping, balancing, being acrobatic, and we know cats can do the same as well. They're very good at climbing and jumping, and they have very good balance. They're very agile. Could you draw a simple image to go with that sentence? So let's discuss the task again. You have to think of 4 examples that you have used in your own poetry and draw images to match them. Now I put their similes and metaphors, but if you can think of alliteration or onomatopoeia, that would be fine as well. I'm going to move on. Press the pause button if you need to. So the whole idea here is that you're just drawing images today, because the important part here is that you understand what things look like, or you can imagine them in your mind after you've read a particular sentence. Right, so we did the dragonfly on Friday, and you've also done your own version of the dragonfly. So draw images or illustrations for each verse that help develop an understanding of what it is about. So I am a dragonfly and I live on the breeze between the reeds and rushes and the sun's soft fingers. Can you draw some images that go with verse 1? So I've put an image there of the dragonfly, just in case you're not sure what a dragonfly looks like. And then if you look at that dragonfly, you could compare it to what's been said in the poem. So verse 2, I am a dragonfly and my wings are like water, or as sharp as 2 swords cutting the air into pieces. Can you draw images to go with verse 2? And verse 3, the last one, I am a dragonfly and my eyes are like glass, as round as the moon. They see all that pass. Once again, can you draw images to go with verse 3? So let's recap on the LI. It's to use words to develop images. So as a reader, you need to be able to read a phrase, a sentence or a word, and hopefully you'll have an understanding of what the word means, as well as those words should be able to create pictures in your mind. So today it's about changing words or phrases or sentences into images. So when you've done that task, there's no writing today, email it to yr3@grange.harrow.sch.uk, and good luck with your images and illustrations. So I'm just going to read this one here. The student's mind is a bucket and the teacher pours in knowledge. So you can see 2 images or drawn here to show what a person might be thinking when they read that sentence. But what does that really mean? The student's mind is a bucket and the teacher pours in knowledge. So what do you think that means? Good luck with the task. I look forward to reading your work. Bye for now.